Okay, good morning. So this is kind of a members, mostly for members, message. This morning in morning devotion from Mother's book, God Shall Wipe Away Every Tear. Mother was talking about when they went to Moscow. Mother and Father and Hyojinim went to Moscow, and at that time the Soviet Union was an empire. It was this world power. It had just this menacing, dangerous presence. And, the free world, we didn't, they were actively trying to overthrow every democratic, if a country was not communist, then it should be communist. It's easy to look back now and go, oh yeah, they went to Moscow, but they were risking their lives completely. And, they, even the church leaders sat down and Father said, we're going to go to Moscow. And they were just like, Father, please, that's not that's dangerous. You could be killed there. You're anti-communist. Everybody knows you're anti-communist. You're going to the heart of communism. Please, that's a very dangerous thing to do. But Father and Mother and Hyojinim absolutely had faith in God, absolutely trusted God. And they went into that, like the capital of the hardness of the world, cold, atheistic, calculating. And you got to remember, Russia, the Soviet Union, had tried to kill Father. They had sent people to go and to eliminate Father. But there was one thing that Mother mentioned. She said that the victory over communism campaign was not a political stance. It was not democracy is better than communism. It came fundamentally down to God or no God. It was either there is a God or there is not a God. So what they were opposed to was atheistic materialism. And hearing that, looking at it from that perspective changes it, because it's one thing to go, oh, communism is bad. There's communists, there's communists, there's communists. Let's be against those people. Father was very clear. In Chumbo Mogyong, he said, I am not against communists. I'm against communism. And there's a difference there. What they were fighting against was the thinking of no faith, the thinking without faith, the planning your life and planning a world that does not include God. That's what true parents have always been against. They are for planning a world with God, planning a life with God, waking up and saying, good morning, God, and walking with God throughout your day. And that means, that's not just a slogan, that means, God, which way should I go today? God, I'm going to go here, okay? Telling God everything you're going to do. Or sometimes being receptive if God just says, hey, why don't you go over here right now? That's not in my schedule. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I want to do that? Maybe that doesn't, why would that work? Because there's always some part of my mind, I don't know about you, but there's always some part of my mind that is always very rational, but just like a very self-contained material. I'm only thinking about things, like, okay, let's say I get a good deal on avocados, and I've got 12 avocados. And part of me is like, yeah, put a bunch of them in the fridge and that'll stretch out. That'll last you a good month. And then another part of me is like, well, hey, you know what? My neighbors love avocados too. Why don't I just give everybody an avocado? And one part of my mind is going to go, well, your budget is like this and like that and like that and like this. No, it doesn't make sense to give things away. And the thinking with faith is, of course I want to give. Of course I want to give. This is how God lives. If I live this way too, it'll come back to me. How's it going to come back to me, says the no God voice, right? How's it going to come back to me? How does that work? That doesn't work. So, yeah, no, avocados is kind of trivial, right? But the point is that in my everyday life, I have a choice of listening to their sort of very rational, you only have what you have, you only get what you're going to get, so it doesn't make sense to give anything away. There's that voice. And then there's another voice that says, you know what? God gives all the time. And if you give, it will come back. And our parents, our true parents, lived their whole lives absolutely based on that standard. That to them, it was just as logical as if you go in the river, you're going to get wet, or if you jump off your bed, you're going to hit the ground. That was as real to them, that if you give, it will come back to you. God will give it back to you. You have no idea how it's going to happen, but it will happen. See, that's the difference between like a cold, calculating, business type mind that only looks for profit. And, the way to get profit is you give as little as you can and you take as much as you can. That's the way to get profit. But that doesn't include God. So anyway, there's lots of examples. But the point is that they were not taking a stance that would split the world into two parts and go, this side is better, that side is worse. These are the good guys, these are the bad guys. They were saying, because Mother also said, atheistic materialism was centered in the communist world, but it also existed in the free world. And this is the point that I heard this morning, was that right now we're being called on to be faithful, to have more faith than ever before, to have a deeper and stronger and living, pulsing connection with God. And we should always be doing what our parents did, which was ignoring the practical voices, ignoring the practical thinking, the practical, right? Now, I'm using that word because that's what that kind of thinking always uses. However, our parents had a different kind of practical, heavenly practical. Heavenly practical was, this is how God works. I'm going to trust that God will work because I'm with God, staying with God. I mean, if we go back to the Old Testament, the book of Genesis, when Moses sends the 12 spies into Canaan, 10 of them come back with a very practical report. They're huge. These people are so big. They're well fed. They're muscular. They're tall. We look like grasshoppers next to them. We're skinny. We're small. And they've got built up cities. They've got armies. They've got armor. They've got all these things. There's no way we're going to be able to conquer this place. That's a very practical, realistic report. However, it doesn't include God. So in that sense, it was an atheistic, materialistic way of looking at the situation. And Joshua and Caleb, who gave faithful reports, were like, you know what? Yeah, they're big. So what? We have the living God with us. We have the living God with us, and they don't. Our spirit is so much stronger than theirs. We should go. We need to go let's just go. Because God is with us. God has been with us all this time, and God is still with us. Let's just go. Now that is a report including God in your daily actions, your daily lives, okay? That's why it's such a great example for us, and it's been quoted so many times. But that's the exact same contrast. It's the same thing that I face every single day when I wake up. Am I going to live a life based on practical realities without including God in my thinking? Or am I going to include God in my thinking and maybe do something that for people who don't know God would look like something totally crazy. And maybe it would be kind of crazy, and God would go, hey, yeah, this is great, let's do it, okay? So anyway, that's something that struck me this morning. It was not just a political stance. It was against a way of looking at the world, of living your life, that doesn't include God in every part of it. So, pray up, go to a Chonsham one if you can, and if you can't, talk to people who have been, and just pray as much as you can. So, hey, this is a wonderful day.